When I first arrived here in San Jose, Costa Rica to live here full-time, my first priority was to find an apartment. I had a room booked in an Airbnb for 1 week, and during that time, my intention was to find my own place. I had a budget of $300 a month for rent and utilities. Initially, my apartment search was a crushing failure due to my own poor planning. Eventually, everything worked out okay. I learned quite a lot throughout the process, and stay with me. I'll share all of that information with you. It may be useful to you if you're planning a visit to another country and you intend to conduct any kind of business. The first example of poor planning is that although I gave myself 1 week to find a place to live, I arrived here in San Jose on New Year's Eve, the beginning of a 4-day weekend. On day 5 and day 6 of the 4-day weekend, the city really didn't seem to be open for business. My week had elapsed, I hadn't accomplished anything, and it was necessary to negotiate a second week with Airbnb, which fortunately was not a problem. The second week is when my apartment search got underway. I got up early each morning and, fueled by caffeine and adrenaline, I hoofed it into the city center, began looking for any sign of an apartment for rent. Now, one important part of the story is that here in Costa Rica, we don't use street names, street addresses, or street numbers. We only use landmarks. It's a wildly inefficient and ridiculous and baffling system. More about that in a different video, but the relevance here is that if I had conducted my search in a random fashion, gone outside the city center, not only could I have ended up in an undesirable neighborhood, but without any street signs, I could have gotten turned around, unable to find my way back. Also, I wasn't certain about the reliability of the internet connection. If I didn't have that, I wouldn't have Google Maps, and I wouldn't be able to call the Uber cavalry to come and rescue me. So I did need a landmark, and the one I chose was right behind me. You may or may not be able to see it. It's this tall building right here, about a mile from the city center. So using that as my guidepost, I could continue in that direction. Once I got out there, I could conduct my search within about a half-a-mile radius, and at the end of the day, using my breadcrumb in the sky, I could get back to the city center and back out in this direction to my Airbnb. So that's how I navigated the city. When I found a banner or sign indicating that there was an apartment for rent, I would attempt to call the number, and this is when I experienced a series of challenges. The first one is how to make a phone call in a foreign country. There are many options available. There are many more opinions about which option is the best. I'll have more about that in a future video. But for now, the important thing is that when I was calling a local number, I had to dial international. This takes a little getting used to. There's a different protocol. There are extra digits in the phone number, and sometimes the call didn't go through. It's also possible that the calls didn't go through because some of these numbers have been disconnected, as in the last few years, people have switched over to exclusively using WhatsApp. Second problem is that the call did go through and the person on the other end didn't pick up the phone. This is likely because my US number showed up on their caller ID. They didn't bother to pick up the phone. That's understandable. Challenge number 3, someone did pick up on the other end. They only spoke Spanish. My Spanish is terrible, but I had memorized a few key phrases in order to get the conversation rolling. Once it was rolling, I got a response in Spanish. I didn't understand what the other person was saying. There were some long, awkward pauses. We hung up. Challenge number 4, I did get someone on the line who spoke a little bit of English. I would attempt to explain my situation. I just arrived in San Jose. My intention is to live here full time, but apparently I did not make myself clear because the people had a series of questions indicating that they thought that I was only here for a few days. In any case, we were unable to get the conversation in sync, and we were not able to conduct business. On a few occasions, I spoke with someone who had an apartment for rent. They were fluent in English, they understood my situation, and they quoted me the rent of $500 or $650. Now, that was outside of my budget, so I said, no thank you, and that was more or less the end of it. However, I was curious about why I was being quoted an amount of money in US dollars. I'm well aware that I'm in a foreign country. We have a currency system here. The local currency is called the colon. It's not like going to Hawaii or Puerto Rico where all transactions are conducted in US dollars. Also, it seemed suspicious to me that it was exactly $500 or exactly $650. This phenomenon is called the gringo price or the gringo tax. That means that someone had an apartment available for less than $500 or less than $650. They understood that I was from the United States, specifically from New York City, where an apartment might rent for $2,000 or $3,000. So they just pitched the apartment at $650 to see if I would take the bait. I didn't, and nothing wrong with that. That's where we left it. At the end of the second week, I had accomplished nothing. I didn't have a place to live. Yes, it was necessary to negotiate a third week with my very gracious and hospitable Airbnb host, una punta del sombrero y muchas gracias a Señora Pacheco. Recognizing that my go-it-alone, do-or-die strategy was getting me a lot closer to die and much further from do, I needed to come up with some new idea. So I got on Facebook. I had already been following several of the groups that are dedicated to either living in or moving to or visiting Costa Rica. I posted a bulletin that said, I'm struggling to find an apartment. My Spanish is terrible. If you have an apartment, please feel free to let me know. If not, and you can help me find a place, I'm happy to pay for your time. It just took a couple of minutes for the phone to start lighting up like a Christmas tree on the Las Vegas Strip on the 4th of July. I contacted one of those people. We worked out a deal where I would pay a modest fee for her time. That afternoon, she got busy and made some calls on my behalf, set up some appointments. The next day, she arrived promptly at 9 a.m. We went to look at a few places, and within a few hours, I'd found just the right place. If I'd done that to begin with, this would have been a much shorter video. The apartment is in the building right behind me. Those are my two windows there. It's a small studio in a relatively modern building, well constructed, well maintained. We're about 1 mile from the city center, so it's easy to walk into town and conduct my business. Of course, the apartment overlooks this city park that I'm standing in. There's a creek that runs right outside the window, which is very satisfying. The neighborhood is friendly, well respected, relatively safe, clean, and quiet. The apartment was shown to us by the closest thing we have to a professional realtor. The rent was quoted in the local currency, 160,000 colones, and that let me know that I was probably paying the same amount of money as everyone else, regardless of my nationality. At that time, 160,000 colones was the equivalent of about $265 US, with an estimated $15 for the electricity and another $15 for the water bill. That brought my total rent and utilities to $295, just a few bucks short of my ridiculously low and entirely arbitrary $300 budget. 5 years later, the rent is still 160,000 colones. Due to changes in the currency conversion, the rent is now about $320, about $40 for the utilities, $360 total. It's still a good deal. With that, it was time to say adios y vaya con Dios to my Airbnb and get settled into the new apartment with my 3 suitcases and laptop computer. Here in Costa Rica, unfurnished apartment means, of course, no furniture. It also means no kitchen appliances, no stove, no refrigerator. And in this case, it meant no closets, no shower curtain rod, and so forth. So there was quite a lot that needed to be addressed. I'll take you through all of that in the next video. The best way to find those videos is to click the button right over here to follow the channel. Thank you very much for watching.